Hello, hello, hello! Andrew here. Since we're back from vacation and the kids are back in school, I figured now was a perfect time to go ahead and release a Starlink update. Long-term channel viewers may remember that SpaceX contacted us back in early February and offered us to be part of the beta process. On February 8th, we made the order, and we actually made a video about that order process, what was all entailed and the costs. A few weeks later, the product came in the mail, and then we went and made a video about the installation, what was in the box, and our initial impressions on the service it provided. Now, we all knew with this being a beta that there was going to be issues over the coming months. Basically, Elon's been talking consistently about having to launch more satellites to get better coverage across the grid. And we've seen this happen where SpaceX has launch after launch after launch, continuing to let more satellites off in the atmosphere, which has actually strengthened the grid, and we have better service now than what we did when I first got it. It is good enough and has been good enough now for many months, though, that I actually cut the cord. I no longer get internet from a cable provider. I only get it from Starlink. In fact, we don't get any TV here whatsoever. We just stream Netflix, Disney Plus, and all those other applications like Amazon Prime Video. So the first thing I want to talk about is the location of the unit in the house. I tell you this because the cabling that comes with Starlink, it's different than what you're traditionally used to when you're thinking of cable internet, right? It's not a Cat5 cable. It's actually a powered Ethernet cable that is connected directly to Dishy McFlatface. Now, it's probably 75 to 100 foot in length, right? I'm guesstimating when I say that. But you're going to have to, unless you have this specific type of cable hooked up already in your house and wired on in, instead, you're going to have to drill a hole through and run that cable to where you're going to drop the router and the modem at. Now, in my case, this gave me a perfect opportunity of changing the location of where my internet service sat at in my kitchen from moving it from the countertop to instead being the top of the kitchen cabinets. I love this. This is amazing. It also allowed me the opportunity to do some electrical work and move some plugs up there as well, so that way there's power to the unit from that location. Why this was a little bit of a hassle when first setting up, it's something that I'm glad I finally did over all of these years, because now it's off the countertop and it's more centered in the house, so I get much better service first floor, second floor, and basement based off of this internet. So that brings me to the second thing I want to talk about, service in the house. Now, in my house with a family of 4 and lots of devices, we could have anywhere from 16 to 18 devices going at one point in time consistently. This means that the internet has to go ahead and handle that many IP addresses just to be able to get on and off. And Starlink does this as a champ. I cannot tell you how impressed I am. This is something Buckeye Cable Systems could not do, and this is something Spectrum could not do, and they wanted to consistently charge me hundreds and hundreds of dollars. At one point in time, I got quoted over $200 just to get 12 devices hooked up from Spectrum. This isn't the case with Starlink. Starlink has been very, very consistent, and we're talking about service that allows for online gaming, whether or not my kids are playing Fortnite on the actual Xbox over there, playing Among Us on our phones, downloading movies on Disney Plus or whatever other media we're going to, or even getting online with the when it comes to the arcade system that we have. It works almost flawlessly. Now, I have to say, the service pulls consistently above 100 megabytes, but it does waft a little bit. The high points it comes to is somewhere around 180 to 220 megabytes, but the low points it comes to, it does sometimes get around the 45 to 50 megabytes as a whole. This is because the satellite travels over that circle of influence, and it actually is skipping from one to another as it's picking up the next satellite. Overall, though, I have to say I'm really happy, because service in the house, in all places in the house, is better than it's ever been, and it's consistent, which is something I haven't had in the past. Now, that being said, according to my actual Starlink app, it does say that I get an intermittent drop about once every minute to 4 minutes, and that's based off of some branches that are coming out of one of the trees on the side and some leaves that have gone ahead and grown on those branches that weren't there when we first did our original install. You'll see on this picture I'm going to post up here that the circle of influence where the actual satellite comes across, it's just barely covered over here on the sides. which means, I've talked to my neighbor about whether or not, we can take down that tree. I actually offered him half price to go ahead and take down that tree. But I think I'm going to have to come to another solution with that because there's plenty of cable and there's other places to mount it on the house to make sure that this isn't even an issue to begin with. So that's a perfect segue into the third thing I want to talk about, which is where you're going to mount your Dishy McFlatface on your physical house. In my opinion, where we mounted it to begin with was more out of necessity than where it was being a good idea. In the middle of February, it was snowing. Getting up on the second story roof was not a good idea because of the ice, and really this was where we were forced to put it because of the weather. Now that it's summer and it's hot and we don't have those weather concerns, and we know also that we're going to be limited by the leaves on this tree, it's probably a better idea now to go ahead and move it up to the second story. Now there's a ton of cabling that comes with Dishy McFlatface, so we really don't have to worry about the length of cable regardless of where we want to do it. It's actually a surprising amount. Again, I'm going to say somewhere between 70 and 100 feet. The kicker is, though, is you're going to have to look at how you're going to mount it under the roof. You could use the mount that comes with it. Right now, I'm actually leaning toward this mount right here. The big kicker is just the fact that I don't know how much I want to actually drill and tap into the roof that I have because it's one of those metal roofs and it's got a lifetime warranty. I'll give you a heads up in the future about which way I decide, but regardless, it's going up on the second story in that location. So the fourth thing I want to talk about is the price. When they tell you $99 is all it's going to go ahead and cost, that's exactly what they mean, $99. Taxes, they're included in the service. We're not talking about $99 times 1.0725 or any of the other hoop-de-ha you have here in America. It's actually amazing. It's very refreshing to know I'm planning on $100, I get $100. That is one of the best surprises I've had from actually having Dishy McFlatface and having Starlink as a whole, is the repeatability. There's no changes in my service every single month. I don't have to worry about them sneaking in another fee or how that works. It's a $99 contract, and that's what I pay is $99 a month. So final thoughts on the product, I have to say I'm happier than I've ever been with my internet service. It's cheaper than what I normally pay, it's better service than what I normally get, it's more consistent than what I normally get, and it gives me a whole new appreciation for the work that is done at companies like SpaceX and Tesla. I have to be honest with you, I am a Tesla investor, and I will say this has made me completely rethink what is coming down the pipeline, even in that company. More on that in the future. Let's just say there's a lot of conversation that happens where we think Apple's going to compete with Tesla. It might be the other way around. Well, that about wraps up today's episode. What I want to know, though, is how you feel about Starlink. Are you considering getting it yourself, or are you going to go ahead and stick with having the cord? Tell me about it down in the comments below. And thanks again for joining me today. If you haven't done so already, please click that thumbs up button, click that subscribe button, and consider sharing this with one of your friends. It really does help the channel. Until next time, I'm Andrew Sherman. This is the Dad Manual, and remember, failure isn't bad. Failure to try and learn is. Have a good one.